area. And one thing I'd like to hand out to you, I'm not so sure, typically what I run into is people don't know what a public charter school is. So one of the things I thought I'd do is I've got just some brochures on the company itself I'll hand out. We don't need to go through those at all. Pass those up, appreciate it. What that is just some general information on the company itself. For the most part, the company has been in business now since 1995, so I guess that makes us almost 20 years old. And as of yesterday, we opened our 80th school in about 9 states now. So at this point, we're not quite up to 55,000 students, but getting close. One of the things that that allows us to do, obviously, is to visit many different states, if you would, and operate schools. One thing that separates our company is that we are not just an operator. We actually design, build, own, operate, and maintain the schools. So as I stand before you, there won't be another company come in looking to operate the school. We have a division of our company that does that specifically. So I don't know if you'd prefer to ask questions as we kind of go down through that. I've got the review that the staff did, and I'll kind of do it however you'd like me to, whatever works for you.
I'm curious, do you have any other of these schools in the state of Louisiana?
We do. We opened 2 this year in Louisiana. We have, let's see, 3 years ago we opened one in East Baton Rouge, up on the north side, just by the airport. On the 11th, I'll get them confused, either the 11th or the 13th, we opened one in Baker. Baker, which is the north side of Baton Rouge, on the north side of the airport, if you would.
The hopping side of Baton Rouge.
Hopping, yep. We actually, very interesting, we actually converted an old Walmart and turned that into a K-8 school. So that opened on, I'm going to say that one was the 11th, that was the first one. And then in Lafayette, we opened another one on the 13th. We converted an old Albertsons building. And that turned out phenomenal. So, and then the last one we just opened here yesterday was back up in Michigan. And that's a brand new build there. And we also opened one in North Carolina this year as well. So that gets us up to the 4.
It's vacant land. Well, it's got a residence on it, it's pretty much vacant.
Okay. Well, we got plenty of empty buildings around here if you'd rather do that.
Well, they got it. We kind of like that. They got to be in the right area. They got to be a little special, though, I'll tell you. It's very tricky to, big open boxes work pretty good. Old industrial buildings, lofts, do not work good. I mean, to make this work right, we have to be very conscious of dollars, as most any company would.
Right.
But converting old historic buildings is generally not something that works real well. But open big boxes like an old Walmart. We've done a Target building in Waterford, Michigan a couple of years ago. That also turned out really well.
Big space.
It is. Typically you're looking at, well, the Albertsons was the smallest, and that was about 50,000 square feet. There's not an ounce of space left in that one. However, in the Walmart we converted, that was about 80,000 square feet to start with, and we probably got about 30 left over in the end of that building. So
Today we're just looking at parking determination and site plan approval for the school?
Yes. And
Correct.
one of the things that Mr. Dunstan, I'd like Mr. Dunstan to cover is one of the, if you look at staff report, there was a number of concerns that were brought up about the stacking distance from where you show this plan. I think it was approved and it was conceptually approved. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but in concept, the state is okay with the plan, but they wanted to see a traffic impact study, and one of the concerns I expressed to you at the break was making sure that you understand if this plan was approved the way it is today, you had to make substantial improvements to this plan, substantive improvements to this plan, because of the fact that additional queuing space may be needed, that you may have to come back to this board. So could you kind of speak to that?
Absolutely. Let me first lead off by the person who designed this plan for us is a licensed traffic engineer in the state of Louisiana, as well as many other states. She works for us across the country, and we lead with that because we have such a large impact on traffic. So this is not necessarily drawn by a civil engineer with not a lot of experience in traffic design, if you would. And Amy Jacario is the lady's name, and she works with Wade Trim Engineering. They have a few offices around the country, but primarily they're in Grand Rapids, not too far from us, which makes it very nice. Amy also is strapped with the honor, if you want to call it of such, of going back and fixing old schools and improving their traffic. Based on our history, we know what works and doesn't work. Like I said, the one we opened yesterday gives us 80 that we have in operation right now. The reason Amy's not here with me today is because she's at that school opening it. Typically, when we open a school, we have, we call it, it's kind of a startup committee, if you would, and Amy is part of that. So in the 4 schools we've opened this year, she camps out at each one of those schools for a couple days and helps get them lifted off the ground. So before she even shows up, there's a significant amount of planning just from a staffing standpoint on how it's going to operate, information that goes out to the parents on how to, well, more than just how to park, but how to drive and use the queuing lanes and how we're going to pick up children. And so I got to back it all the way up to that point, because it's not just a drawing on paper, it's how we operate all the cars that ends up laying in there, which is a huge piece of this. So every good plan on paper, unless you bring it into operation, you know, could blow up on you. So what happens is, number one, Amy designs these sites for us based on student count. And then, and this is very typical too, to discuss our site plans, our off-site drive, if you would, as well as the on-site requirements with the local governing body, which is either the city engineer and, or in this case, a combination of the city engineer and the state, because we often back up to state highways. Because generally, being on an arterial road is a much better place for us to be than on a 3-lane or a 2-lane road. So the distances that people immediately jump to is, okay, we can't back the cars up out on Burcoons. And the way we solve that is the plan that's in front of you right now has over 4,000 feet of queue. And if you extrapolate that, that's about 168 cars that we can stack in the 2 lanes all the way around to the front door. Plus there's 166 parking spaces on this as well. Keep in mind, we run a K through 8 school. And by the way, we don't open all K through 8 to start with. That's not a good way to start things off. We open K through 5, so it's about 2/3 of the student body to start with, and then we grow into the last 3. Each year we add an additional section, so we go K through 5, add the 6th grade, add the 7th grade. So immediately out of the box, the on-site queuing is, I will tell you, probably 30 to 35% heavier than what we would need on opening day, no matter what. And I'm very confident actually at this point that the lineal queue we've got built into this is probably not going to come back with any major changes to it. Just based on all the other schools that we operate and how we open, we just don't, this is experience, primarily from Amy. And it's more than Amy, because she actually relies very heavily on, it's a traffic engineering modeling program that they use. It's a nationwide program that literally you can pick and plug in. In this case, they use a private school data point, if you would, as far as that's what drives the model, because we don't bus. And that's how you generate all the queue lengths and how you generate all the parking. So, but there's a couple other pieces on here I want to point out. And there are a couple things that could come back in the traffic study that I hope they don't, but they may. But we can accommodate it. The site it's really set up very nice. It's big enough that we can move some pieces around or adjust them and still get our queue lengths. But the really important piece on this one that I'll start with is we have an ingress lane that's on the far eastern edge. And if you look closely right here, I'll use my big finger here and try not to get it. Right here, what ends up happening is Burcoons is a 5-lane arterial through here. So we've got a full center turn lane that runs literally the whole section. What happens is, the trick is to get the people off the cars to let them free flow in, so that they don't have to wait and try to fight for position to get in, and the guy that's trying to turn left doesn't look at the guy who's making a right turn and looking at each other playing chicken. That's a bad day. So what this does is there's an island in the middle of that. Both the right turn in, which by the way would be a brand new decel lane, a right turn lane, and the left turn don't fight for position. They each have their own lane to come in. So the people who are coming westbound immediately just flop right in. And you'll notice that the radiuses are relatively large. actually driven more for service vehicles, but also just to help, the cars will slow down in the decel lane, and then they can make the sweeping turn, and it just gets them off the road immediately. So the reason we also have so many parking spaces in there is if any of you are parents and have younger kids, especially the K through 3 version, a lot of times people like to walk up to the school and go grab their kid and put their hand on them and walk back out to the car and talk to the teacher and socialize. So we find that it's kind of a balancing act, but it's pretty common that the younger kids are literally handheld in and out to the car. The last piece on this puzzle, there's 2 more pieces I'll show you. In front of the school, you'll see 3 lanes that are set out. One is to remain open all the way for a fire lane, if you would. The interior 2 lanes that butt up against the school, you'll notice, are on the passenger side, not on the driver's side. Very important, because you don't want kids crossing over. What happens is this is very much like a train when it enters a station, or if you go to the amusement park and like to ride roller coasters. So here's how it works. All the people that I mentioned before, the staff, typically I would say there's about 6 people on average that are out there to help load and unload kids. The train pulls in, everybody stops, puts it in park, then the kids are released off the sidewalk to go jump in their cars. As soon as everybody's in and the car doors are closed, then who's ever standing out at the front, the safety officer, will release that whole wave. What then happens is you'll notice it's a pretty long exit, and there's a lot of queue in the exit lane going out. It's designed to hold that entire train load, if you would, in that space so that the next one can come in and fill, and that allows those cars to easily exit. So we really like having the 2 lanes separated. If the State Highway Department, who has ultimate control, says you can't do that, it's not the end of the world. We will squeeze them together, but we'll still have those same functions. You'll still see at least those 4 lanes built into it like that, and they'll come out at one entrance. We'll fight and
No
go back.
buses?
We do not bus.
Okay.
Correct. So I hope that kind of helps everybody on the queuing and the parking.
Talk about your parking need. Why is the 160 spaces appropriate for the number of students and staffing?
Yeah, well, staffing we have, keep in mind we're going to ramp up, so we start, but let's say we start with about 45, and I think, actually I won't even guess. Let me just read it, what we've got.
52.
Yeah, there you go, thanks. And what that really accounts to is we have our K through 8 program's got 28 classrooms plus specials. So specials are art, media, band, that kind of stuff. So the staffing needs are typically right in the low 50s to mid 50s, depending if they have a couple volunteers. And that leaves us with 110 spaces free and open all day long to handle those parents who want to come in or grandparents who want to pick up their kids. So we generally find that, well, 90% of the time or 95% of the time the entire parking lot is empty except for staff. So
What do you do for parents' night or some special function? Do you use the queuing lanes?
yeah, they do. Yeah, they really do. Generally, that's exactly what happens. They all kind of slide in there, and you know those functions are typically an hour-ish usually. I mean, that's kind of it's identical in those regards to a public school. So those same type of functions you'd see at a public school, this is a public school, so they do the same thing. I would actually tend to think we may do a couple additional ones because there's such a heavy emphasis on the parent involvement. There's a couple things that separate our school, and the founder built it on 4 pillars. And you know, really the 4 pillars were academic excellence, moral focus, partnership with parents, and then really student responsibility. And I always sum it all up as it's accountability. And we hold the students accountable as well as we kind of hold the parents as accountable as we can, to the point that the students, when they start, actually sign contracts and lay out a path of how they're going to learn throughout the year. So it's pretty interesting to see that in play. I'm not here to talk much about that. That's from an operations standpoint, that's, if I say much more, I get in trouble. So, but they do a wonderful job with the students, spend a lot of time with them. So.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? I think that's it. Thank you.
That was it. Very good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Anybody else that wants to speak in favor of this application? Is there anybody here to speak in opposition? All right, hearing none, I will call for a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion to approve. Any discussion? I call for the vote.
Didn't vote. I don't know why the thing didn't say yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Good luck. Case number C-6714, the Montessori School for Shreveport.
Look, another school.
Yeah, good school too. We have one right in our neighborhood.
Hi, my name is Jeff Spikes. I'm at 905 Gladstone Boulevard, Shreveport, 71104. I'm representing the Montessori School for Shreveport, and we're hoping to put a satellite campus out at Providence. As you can see in the land use report, we're going for about 44 students, 2 classrooms, 7 staff members. It will be pre-primary and toddler, so just little ones. Here in the land use report, there was a revised site plan for the sidewalks, which we revised and got to the staff. Wanted to see a dumpster placement, which we also included as well. And there was, well, I believe that was it. That one of the other questions in the land use plan was finishing Pecan Drive. Our plans are right now to finish Pecan Drive to the point where we enter in to the drive for the school. So right now that is an undeveloped road, but the plan would be to finish that to that point to turn into the school. One of the notations in the land use report talked about no permit until Pecan Drive was completed. We were talking with staff about that and hoping that we could make that more tied to the certificate of occupancy instead of the permit. That way the construction could happen at the same time of both the school and the drive. So another notation in the land use report, it says the building is 6,000 square feet. That's actually under roof. The actual conditioned area is only about 3,700 square feet. The Montessori method has a lot of outdoor class time, and there's some larger overhangs where the kids do a lot of learning as well. Montessori has been around for 50 years, and they're just looking to continue their mission and expand in the area.
Is there about the sidewalks, Stephen?
Yes, and that's one of the things that we thought that there's a great possibility that you're going to probably, because this is actually was designed as a walkable community.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason why we brought that up. And so you've already made that change?
Yes, sir. We actually put in a sidewalk connecting directly to the front of the school where the porte-cochere is, and also actually added in a crosswalk at Woodbury there so that any children walking from the neighborhood could get across the street safely.
Thank you.
And you're aware of Mr. Westerman's comment regarding the making sure that Pecan Drive was built to standards, and he had some concerns about just terminating as a radius. Have you talked to him about that?
Some, but I guess our biggest question was how far in. I mean, as far as, we have a civil
I think that
engineer.
you can just work that out with him.
Right. BBC is doing the civil engineering, so the tension, all that will have to be figured out. But as long, our biggest concern was making sure that where we're terminating Pecan Drive is at the drive, and we'll work out the radius whatever way they need us to have the true turn or whatever it needs to be.
You'll have the construction standards will be the city.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right. It'll be built to city standards.
Any other questions for Mr. Spike?
Just one quick one. Mr. Spiker, do you plan on any additions to this, or is this it? This one physical size and that's it?
They would like to add 2 classrooms within the next 2 to 3 years, and we feel like we've got the parking and the queue space for the drop-off designed to allow that, accommodate that without any expansion. Obviously, there's a large, piece of land that we could expand more, but we feel like all bets are off as far as the paving and things that we've got right now. I mean, we're not hamstringing ourselves, but we know we're going to have to come back to you again if we want to expand.
The only quick reason I asked that question is given the limited length of your carpool line,
Yes, sir.
that if you expanded the building to make it bigger, that there may be issue with cars backing out into the street and that issue.
Right.
What you're showing right now.
We thought about that. One thing is there's 2 lanes. There is big enough for 2 lanes of cars to stack. Also, if you look at the percentages, we sent a letter with our application. If you look at the percentages of the kids that actually are dropped off at one time, there's a large percentage of kids that don't even ever see the queue line. They their parents come pick them up in the afternoon. They go park and come and walk in. So we understand that. We feel like once we get underway and you can see how the school operates, it will prove that there's not going to be an issue with the stacking.
The final sheet in your packet is a letter from his office that explains how that operates. You want to make sure you had enough information to make your deliberation regarding the amount of parking, because this is another one where you have to determine that parking is sufficient.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in favor of this application? Is there anybody in opposition? All right, hearing, seeing none.
Motion approved.
Second.
Do we understand enough? We're not about parking and all that? All right, I call for the vote.
And push it again.
You guys are thinking about what?
Is it on?
There you go.
Okay.
Motion approved. Case number C-6814.
Motion to defer per the client.
Well,
Second.
they're coming out.
Wait, there's somebody, is there anybody here for,
No,
No?
no.
what is it, Pre-Dot Designs?
Yes, there is.
They're leaving.
Got a car for the horse deal. You trying to get out here?
Duh.
Oh, he coming.
Careful, they're gonna cut your paycheck.
I'm Jeff Perigo, I'm architect with Privo Designs. We're here just to answer any questions regarding the deferral letter we requested on behalf of Willis Knight.
Or you had to stay so long.
Yeah.
You can't, we have to make a certain rule and violate.
Protocol.
Any other
protocol.
questions, please, for this gentleman? Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you.
We do apologize for the time. Is there anybody that wants to speak in favor of this application? Is there anybody in opposition? Okay, hearing none, I have a motion.
Okay, Dale.
That same motion.
There wasn't a motion.
Motion to defer per the client.
All right.
Second.
Standing for opposition.
Any discussion?
Got it?
You have one more case.
I call for the vote.
Good.
Motion has passed. Case number C-6914, did I just say that?
No, you're on.
C-6914,
We don't. Oh, he spelled his name.
Willis Knight and Health System. Hello, sir.
Bob Basinger, Fort and Tablada, 8650 Business Park Drive, Shreveport, 71105. I'm here representing Willis Knight, and we're asking to defer and continue until next month.
All right, any questions? All right, thank you, sir. Is there anybody here in favor of this application? Anybody here in opposition? Hearing none, I call for a motion.
I motion that we defer and continue.
Second.
We have a motion to defer and continue, and a second. I call for the vote if there's no discussion. Thank you, Ms. Fuller, you got it in.
Yes, you
Your
did.
first motion.
It's shaking, bacon, I help.
Historic moment. All right, case number P, oh wait, motion is passed. Case number P-1714, Solomon Hills LLC.
Good afternoon. Ken A&T, 9335 LB Road, Shreveport, Louisiana, here on behalf of the seller, Sunny Farm LLC, Mr. Leon Malatella, and Mr. David Netherton, as well as the purchaser, Mr. Stephen Nichols. If y'all recall, and I know Mr. Fuller you won't because you weren't here, this was brought up in July, and it was an application, and during the process and the questions, Mr. Nichols decided that he wanted to pull it at that time, and the reason he wanted to pull it was because he was uncomfortable with the process, and he wanted to make sure that what he was doing in purchasing this property was, one, right for his business, two, right for the community, because his office is just a few miles down the road from where this is going in, and wanted to have a better feeling upon the whole process himself. Since that time, he has done some research, he's looked into it more, and he knows this is the right project for him, and also believes it's the right project for the community. What he's wanting to do is take the old par 3 golf course, which has been shut down for several months now, and convert it to a borrow pit. The purpose of converting that to a borrow pit would be to use the dirt for the construction of the bridges on I-49 as it connects to 220, north of 220 up to the Highway 1, and then that project. He has met with the only property owner that has only resident who has residential property, which is directly north and across the street, and they are here today and will, I'm assuming, will testify and will be able to speak on their own behalf, so I don't want to try and speak for them. But based on the conversation that I was part of, I do think that, you know, once a couple of questions have been answered satisfactorily to them, that they're okay with it. And like I said, they're the only residents who have property that's adjacent to it. There is a 10-foot berm as part of the project, which would protect the north area from that residence. The other concern from Mr. Gifford is the entrance, and the entrance will be the current entrance to the par 3 golf course on the south side, coming off of the Jefferson Page Monkhouse intersection. There will be no other entrance to the property except from that one entrance. All of the requirements that the ordinance and the parish ordinance requires are met with the site plan, and if there are any other additional requirements, and Mr. Nichols is committed to make sure that they take place. He wants to run a first-class operation. It'll be limited to approximately 15 dump trucks a day coming in and out of the entrance on the Jefferson Page Road, going back and forth to the construction site north of 220. At the completion of the project, which is estimated to be approximately 5 years, then he will convert the land back into a suitable use for, you know, residential or whatever, but it would be converted back into, you know, acceptable as required by the parish ordinance. All erosion and runoff, there'll be no runoff, additional runoff, obviously, as you're digging a hole, it'll go into that area, so there's no issues with runoff. The area surrounding it is all industrial and commercial, with the exception of the north side, and I've already addressed that. I do know that there's been some concern about, once he's through, you know, excavating the dirt for the purpose of the construction, that it'd be converted to a dump. I want everybody to know that, first of all, that cannot be done without coming back and getting additional approval, not only from the MPC, but also from the DEQ and several other regulatory. But I want to go ahead and put that to bed in case it is brought up during opposition, that in no way, shape, or form does he have any plans to convert it to a dump, nor could he without there being extensive modifications to the current use. With that, I'll answer any questions. Mr. Nichols is here if you have any questions of him.
Yes, Mr. Young?
Mr. Ante, correct?
Yes.
This may be more for Mr. Nichols to answer, and we covered this a month ago, but I just want to make sure I got my mind wrapped around it. On the picture that is up there, it says there's a phase 1 and a phase 2. I believe Mr. Nichols had discussed about how much dirt would be coming out as far as depth, because I have played golf out there before, or I typically play golf out there before, and I'm trying to get an idea of how much dirt's going to be coming out and what the topography of the land's going to look like after that.
It's about 20 feet from the current elevation to an elevation point of 210 feet.
How about dust?
Which on page 2 of the zoning application, right, second to the last paragraph, it says expected average depth will be approximately 20 feet. And the bore pit will be completed in approximately, or within 5 years.
And how about your plan to, I know last time it was to address dust control and potential of mud and stuff on the street as you're transporting this?
Well, as far as the dust control, there'll be water trucks as needed. And additionally, if it becomes a point to where it requires more than just the water trucks, then sprinklers could be put in to accommodate that. As far as the mud on the street, the length between where they'll be coming on the property down Kyle Street to Jefferson Page should be sufficient to get all the mud and dirt off of the trucks, and they'll be broom swept as needed.
Any other questions for Mr. Ante? Ms. Bessie?
Yes, just the idea of a mud pit or dirt pit, it does something to me. I'm thinking about health problems with all of that dust, and you stated 15 trucks, and that's daily, right? 15 trucks, dump trucks.
Right, approximately, you know, Monday through Saturday.
Yes.
And obviously not on days when it's raining, because the construction wouldn't be taking place, or it would be very limited.
7 a.m.
To
to
5.
5. Yeah, I had that according to documentation, and I just was concerned.
Yes.
Any other questions for Mr. Ante? Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this application?
My name is Becky Dedon. I live at 3426 Gifford Drive, and my husband and I own the 3 houses that are on that road, and one of them is on the corner of South Roach and Gifford Drive, and it's directly across from the golf course. There's no trees blocking it or anything, so we would be, of anybody out there, we would be the ones that would be getting the dust. But when I think about what possibilities or what could go in on that property, I'm for the dirt pit.
So you're in favor. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Glenn Gifford, 3426 Gifford Drive. I basically am saying the same thing that my wife said. Last time when it came up, y'all asked Mr. Roach, what do you want to see go in on this? I more or less, I grew up at this address there on Gifford Drive. I have been enjoying the privacy. It's kind of a one way in, one way out, and you know, if somebody drives up, you look to see who it is, because nobody else goes back there. And we do have the adjoining property on the east side of the north end. And I would rather see the dirt pit go in than, say, a subdivision, or who knows what could be. The property's going to be sold, and I would prefer this. It retains our privacy, I feel.
Any questions, Mr. Gifford? Thank you. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Is there anybody in opposition? Would you want to stand and get a count for opposition?
They want to speak. Oh, I think he wants to speak.
And anybody wants to speak, please come now. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sharika Anderson. I stay at 13 Hutchison Street. I am a resident in the area, and I do not and would not like a dirt pit there. We have kids in that area, and that subdivision is Kingdom property that has allergies. Who wants the dust to be flowing over in that area? And then not only that, the traffic of the trucks. You always have to think about the kids and their health and what this would have on their impact on their lives.
Can you show us where you live in this area?
Right here, seeing the dust of smoke right over there.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak in opposition?
Hello. My name is
evening.
Stephanie Dodson, and I live at 3913 Hutchinson. And I'm a resident in this area, and I do not want the pit there. I do not. For one, I have health issues, and I'm also a singer. That's not good for us. So I am totally against it. And for one, because of my health issues.
Thank you, Ms. Dobson. Anybody have any questions? Appreciate you coming out. Sorry it took
Thank
so long to
you.
get to this
That's
case.
okay. Thanks. It's for a good cause, so thanks.
Anybody else that would like to speak in opposition?
I'm Louis Roach. I live at 62 North Roach Circle, and I am in opposition of the proposed dirt pit landfill. Back in July, we were here again, and you know, I thought it was going to be over with. And right before the vote, Mr. Nichols stood up and said, if the residents don't want me there, I don't want to be there. It's not that he wanted to reconsider. I guess he did want to reconsider, but we should have gone to a vote right then, but we didn't. You know, I've lived in West Shreveport all my life. I've lived there 40 years. I built my house there, raised my kids there, still got some kids there. And I've spent a lot of money improving my house, and I mentioned last time my outdoor kitchen. I mean, that's my pride and joy. I don't need this dirt pit with the dust and the debris and the noise, like you said, 6 days a week, sometimes 12 hours a day. When they need dirt, they don't stop. They keep going. I'm co-owner of Roach Plumbing Company, and I've dealt with dirt pits. I've dealt with landfills. When you go to a dirt pit, I don't care if you put sprinklers up there, they're not going to run them all the time. He puts a big berm up, the dust is gonna go over the berm. It's gonna go everywhere. What I have built and what I have accumulated will be destroyed. I'll have to leave. I went the other day and just parked up on Ratcliffe Road. There's one way into my house, one way out, right beside the golf course. I'm about, I'd say 12 or 1,300 feet from the back corner of the golf course down my road to my house. I went up there and just stopped and parked. There's school buses picking up kids going to school in the morning. There's mom and dad going to work. In the afternoons, the mom and dad are going back and getting those kids. The school buses are coming back down the road. Why does he want a dirt pit right in my front yard? Why can't he do like everybody else and go outside the city limits? There's, I wrote them down, there's in Benton, the Red River area, there's a dirt pit. Halton, there's a dirt pit. Frierson, there's a dirt pit. Sligo Road, there's a dirt pit. And all these dirt pits are not in the city limits. I mean, I can throw a rock from Jefferson Page to this dirt pit. It's the wrong place for a dirt pit. Where was it? Several years ago, a dirt pit was brought up before the commission at 70th Street and Buncombe Road. It was turned down because it's in a subdivision. I mean, close to subdivision. School buses, traffic, mom and dad's taking kids to work. It's the wrong place. There was another one at Overton Brooks and North Ferry. It was turned down. This one needs to be turned down. There, out off Jolly Neighbor Road is where he lives. And
I'm gonna have to ask you to wrap it up.
Okay.
Your times. If you have a few seconds to wrap it up.
Please turn this down. I want to retire there, live there, and die there, and let my kids have this house. I've bought land. I've got about 20 acres. I'd buy 5 acres at a time. I love where I live. I love West Shreveport. Let's don't give West Shreveport a black eye. The only thing that will come out of this is money from Mr. Netherton will get his land sold, and the dirt will be sold. And then it will be filled up with rocks, bricks, stones. It's not going to be field dirt going back in this landfill. It's going to be trash. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Questions for him?
Any questions?
No, sir. Thank you. Anybody else would like to add something to this in opposition?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's James B. Roach. I live at 5075 North Roach Circle. I'm the brother of the guy that just came up here and co-owner of Roach Plumbing Company. Again, we have nothing against Mr. Netherton or Mr. Nichols. They're very nice people, but this is more business than it is reality of where I live. Again, I asked y'all the last time I was here, put yourself in my place. Would you want a dirt pit in your backyard? Would you want to wake up every day, every morning, hearing beep, 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 bam, bam, trucks running back and forth for 6 days a week at your back door for 5 years? You can't let this pass. It's wrong. I wish Mr. Netherton still had his golf course running. It was beautiful. Mr. Nichols, I wish he could get all the dirt he wants, but not here. This is where I live. The buses that run down through there, you see these wrecks, you take a dump truck and a school bus and you tell me what's going to happen. They say 15 trucks a day. That's all day. Multiply that. Not 15 trucks coming in a day. That's multiplied 15 times. They're back, forward, back, forward. forward. It's constant noise. Would you want that in your backyard? I hope Mr. Nelson sells this place. I know he wants to get raised mayor, but this is my home. West Shreveport is where I was raised, and it is where I'll die. Don't make it miserable my last years. There's really, if you sit down and think about it, there's only one answer to this. No. And that's all I can tell you. I leave it in your hands. But think about the children in this area too. And the ladies that have allergies, sickness, other people who live on streets beside it. The school board, they're not in favor of this. I was not notified for this meeting. The last time I was notified, they took me out of the line so they didn't have to notify me. Check your lines from the last time I was here to now. They moved me out, but I came. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Bermudez.
And I don't know if we asked this last time, but is there something that would be on the property that you would be okay with?
I think if you had I'd rather have an apartment complex there. I'd rather have a cemetery there. I'd have anything but a dirt pit. What are you going to fill it up with? Dirt? That's what you took out of it. What's going back in it? You're not going to put dirt back in it. It's kind of defeating the purpose, wouldn't you think? It's going to be a dump. And what has Shreveport got? Big time problems with a landfill. Think about it.
Thank you, sir.
I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Roach.
Any questions?
The only comment I want to make is I think the likelihood of it ever being turned into a dump is slim to zero. So I really don't think that's on the table because of the last history we had with the one that the DEQ just closed. You can't make a landfill without DEQ permission, and they are really starting to hammer down hard on those, and they just shut that one down up on the
How long has it been operating now? It's just now they're starting to do that. It takes time and politics and everything else to get things moving in the direction it's supposed to go. Y'all know that.
But he was an operational legal dump. This would have to apply from scratch from day one, and the way our government is now, I just don't see that ever happening where they'd ever put it. I'm not saying I'm for the application. I'm just saying y'all were concerned about it being a dump. I don't see it ever being a dump because I don't think.
What would you put back in it?
That's why I asked him about the topography issue question. That's why I wanted to know how much was coming out, because if you put a big hole, you either have a big pond, a wetlands, or you grade it out so the water drains. That's the reason I asked the question is how much dirt was coming out. Because I know of other landfills, or not landfills, borrow pits that were, well, go up and down I-49. That's all those ponds you see on the side of the road. That's borrow pits where the state borrowed the dirt to build a road bed.
A lot of my issues are with that. The other issues are what's involved to get that dirt out of there. What is it going to take to say, I wish I never would have done this? Some kids get killed in a school bus accident because once they bring those trucks out and they get on Jefferson Page, the mud from the area from leaving that place to getting out to Jefferson Page, there's going to be a lot more mud than that. Y'all know that just as well as I do. It's going to get on right there at Jefferson Page. It's going to cause an eyesore. We have already an eyesore there with a rock crusher. And it's got gravel all over that place. Again, that's another issue. Thank you.
Anybody else that wants to speak in opposition?
Not keeping me from pizza, though. Not keeping me from pizza. I'm having a good time.
Name is John Pat Henry, live at 5049 North Road Circle, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71109. Neighbors to the Roach guys. We've already had one of these meetings. We discussed the dirt and the wrecks and the school buses and all that. I've got just a couple of things I want to add to. The gentleman speaking for Mr. Nichols talked about a berm. I don't know what they think that berm's going to do. It's up on high ground. It's not going to block water nowhere. I heard it was put up there to stop the dust. Well, to me, when the dust is being blown and hits that berm, that's just gonna put it up in the air where it'll go further. He says he's gonna get 20 feet of dirt out of there. On his little paper he put out, he shows an elevation of 212 feet above sea level in the low spot, 260 in the high spot. He can get 48 feet of dirt out of the high spot. And he's talking about he's only going to cut 20 feet. I find that hard to believe. When he's got the dirt there and he's got a place to sell it, he's going to get the dirt. If the whole thing is said and done and it is turned into a garbage dump, you got one thing you got to look at as far as I'm concerned. Cross Lake is about 1.5 miles from that pit. It has 2 drains, one out of the west natural drainage, out of the west side of the pit and out of the northeast corner. And there's no way you're going to ever keep all the silt from getting out in them woods, going through the trees and headed to Cross Lake. And if it should turn into a dump, even construction trash as it rots makes methane gas. That's what's going on at that Harrelson pit up there right now. It sat there for years and years, no problem. All of a sudden that gas got strong enough, got lit, you got a burning dump. All that garbage, all that groundwater coming through that garbage, it's going to wind up going in Cross Lake. So to me, it looks like we could deny this permit now for this pit, and we could head off a lot of problems later on, not only for us and our water wells and the noise and dirt and mud and stuff, but for the future of Shreveport. Cross Lake is shaky anyway. It don't need any more pollution put in it the way it is now. But I hope y'all will vote with us and deny Mr. Nichols a permit for this pit, because it's not going to be worth it. It's not going to create enough jobs to help Shreveport on the west side over there. There may be 2 people running this dirt pit. And you'll have truck drivers, but they'll be outsiders. Half of them will probably come from Bossier City. We won't make that much money. But I do hope you folks will vote with us and help us keep a little deal going we got out there that's clean and safe.
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anybody have a question?
I have one for Mr. Jean.
All right.
While we're changing out. Mr. Jean.
Yes, sir.
I had a conversation earlier with Mr. Allen, but I want to direct it towards you about a property that's Walls Lake Road in Fort Lucas, and in that property, they're moving dirt in.
He's asking Mr. Jean a
I'm asking
question.
I'm sorry. I thought he was talking to me.
No, I'm
I
sorry.
can't.
And they're moving dirt in. And my conversation with Allen was they move the dirt in and out all day long. They want to. That doesn't necessarily mean they're getting approval for anything. They have the legal right to move that dirt around, correct?
When you start removing the dirt is where you get into an
That's
issue.
where I was going to go. I wanted to make sure. There's a lot of concern about this particular property and the removal of the dirt and the conditions of it. But on that physical piece of property, they can move that dirt around all they wanted to. And there's nothing that we have a say-so over it. Am I correct?
If
You
they,
could level it out,
they
you
would have to
could-
take a land altering permit.
It would take a what?
They have to have a land altering permit in the city. Now, the parish, I don't know if they have that same process in the parish.
So that's what I'm trying to figure out is because it was my understanding that, like, if I had a piece of property and I wanted to bulldoze every tree on it, I have the right to do so, and to bring dirt on there to level it up, to do whatever I was wanting to do to prepare it. I'm trying to figure out, because if we deny this, there's a, if they can come back and say, we want to build something, I mean, you got adjacent I-1 property to this thing. You've got potential, this thing could go, and you've got a closed school, which I don't know they have any intentions of reopening that school. And I would say, my personal opinion is the likelihood of that school opening back up is slim, because we just saw 2 charter applications today. One of them's taking up to 700 students. I'm just looking at it thinking, I understand their opposition, I understand their concerns. And if my property was over there, I'd probably be standing at mic as well. But I don't know, what I'm worried about is if we turn this down, what's going to be facing us in the future? Somebody's going to be asking to do on this property.
Well, I'm just looking at the ordinance right now. There is a provision within this, so I would assume that you would have a similar, because it talks about an erosion control permit should be obtained from the Department of Public Works. So, the answer to your previous questions, there probably is an erosion control mechanism with the department based off of this statement I'm just reading in the ordinance. So, under the scenario that you talked about, there would be some approval process. It probably
But it would be a
go,
permitting, and that's it,
it would go through a permit. It wouldn't be anything to come in front of you.
which is much simpler, much easier to do.
But if they start taking the
You can't leave. I
material from
understand
the
you take
property, that's a borrow
You
pit.
take dirt off property,
Right.
it's a borrow pit,
Right.
correct? Got it.
Ms. Bessie?
I need to ask you a question, Mr. Jean. I think I heard you bring up Lucas.
Fort Lucas, it's Fort Lucas Walls Lake Road.
Oh, well, I'm thinking about Lucas down Kings Highway. I know that it used to be, I don't know if that dirt pit is still there or not. Are you familiar with?
That one's closed, that's Reeves Dirt Pit.
Yes, because I
closed.
know people that used to work
Way
there.
down.
Yeah, it's
My
closed.
folks used
Reeves
to
is
live
closed,
there.
correct?
Yeah, it's
work
way
there.
down there on Kings
So
Hill.
it's closed now?
Yeah, it's closed.
And I can understand why, too.
They ran out of dirt.
Yeah, they ran out of dirt, but because of that area, too.
Ms. Cooper?
That was why. They had a
Can you
right to
just-
run out.
I'm just ignorant about this. Can you just clarify for me why this is in front of the MPC exactly? And what our standard here is of reviewing this, like what our considerations are supposed to be? And I'm not clear on what we're supposed to be weighing here.
Okay, a couple of things. There's a section in the ordinance,
And what ordinance are you referring to?
Section 54
Okay.
of the Caddo Parish Code of Ordinances. 1127 covers borrow pits,
Okay.
and those are
have it? Can
MPC
read it?
approvals.
I'm sorry, repeat that last.
MPC approvals
Mhm.
in the RA district. And so you are being asked to approve this. There are a couple of things that I think that are mentioned in the report, but I just kind of, there is a criteria that's listed in the ordinance, one of which, those borrow pits shall not be located within 600 feet of a residential dwelling unit located off the proposed borrow pit site. But
Okay.
there's an
And you have
adjoining
all these-
statement. There's an adjoining statement.
Okay.
The Planning Commission may waive or reduce this standard if adequate screening or other buffering is provided. But one of the things that you'll be considering is whether or not you believe that buffering or this screening is adequate. They're showing 100-foot, as you see in the plan here, they're showing 100-foot buffer area from the property line. And keep in mind what I just read you from nearest residential structure. And then they're also showing, as you see in the northern part of that plan, they're showing a 10-foot high buffer, a berm, earthen berm, that would cover the northwest quadrant of the site. So that would be part of your decision. You'd have to waive that provision, reduce that standard, and make a determination if that screening or buffering is adequate.
Okay, so the school is it's much closer than 600 feet. It's 132 to 232 feet. Is this school open? Because there's a note that says closed. Is that the school?
The last time Mr.
That's not the school.
was
Okay.
here to address that, he's not here.
Where
My
is the
understanding
school?
it is.
School is much further away and it's been closed for a number of years.
Mr. Hennison, no, Abram, the attorney, was here the last time, Alan, to address the issue, and I believe in the future they are looking to open that school.
I just shared with her that it's been closed for a number of years, and that's all I said.
Okay,
Yes.
what is that school?
It was an elementary school.
It's elementary school.
Hillsdale, I think was the
Hillsdale.
name.
Okay, so that school is not even operating. Okay. And then it says the houses are anywhere between 44 feet to 540 feet on the north side, and that's all under the 600-foot limit. And then, how many houses are we talking? I don't feel like we are very informed. And I don't know if a buffer is adequate. How do we know if a buffer is adequate?
here for.
On your, Mr. Jean, while you're contemplating that, Mr. Jim Board and I had a conversation one time about why in the world are borrow pits a zoning that is in perpetuity? And why is it not time framed? Are we going to handle this with the UDC?
I haven't got to that part yet. I'm still reading the draft, but yes, we're going to be addressing it.
Because it should be in perpetuity, because eventually you run out of dirt, and there should be a time frame.
And you could sunset that.
But we can't sunset an application now, can we? I don't think we can, because I think I had that conversation with Mr. Jim Board.
You can put a.
And I think that's an issue, because Mr. Jim Board and I had a conversation about how
Hold on a second.
to fix this.
I would just interject, Madam Chair, that you can put a sunset on the number of years that a dirt pit can operate.
Hey, guys.
I take issue with Mr. Jambo.
No. I stand corrected, Mr. Allen. My conversation was about a concrete crushing location or a recycling plant. And then we carried it over to the dirt pit, and that's where I was wrong. Mr. Jim was talking about the other, not that one. Can you sunset a concrete crushing?
If you approve, you can sunset anything you approve. You have done it previously. Historically, MPC has done that.
Do we answer the other question?
Called petition.
Yeah, is there any,
Anybody else know?
well, I have a question. Her question is, how do we know 100 foot's good enough? Any precedents, how did you come up with 100 foot instead of 50 or 200?
Current ordinance is 600.
The current ordinance is 600 feet away from.
Right, whether or not distance takes care of a lot of issues. Because you can allow dust to disperse over a period. Now, earthen berms do some things. I mean, they are very good at sound attenuation.
I can't hear you.
Sound attenuation, buffering sound.
Okay, I got sound.
At that height.
I'm not hearing it well.
I'll be about to do a better job to speak into the mic, but.
How about dust?
Well, that's where distance makes a big difference, because you actually allow that to dissipate over a period of distance. Whether this would be adequate or not, I don't know if there's an exact standard for that, but obviously we put these distance requirements in here, in these ordinances for a reason. And, I think that you can mitigate sound-related issues, and we've done that before in other applications where we've had industrial uses. We've also had buffers as much as 300 feet on some of our other sites, where we've gone a distance of 300 feet. And those sites also had a lot of dense vegetation that remained on those sites. So, each one is different. Whether or not 110 foot is adequate, probably to take care of some of the noise issues, but that's only over a portion of the site and doesn't cover all of the site. So,
but the ordinance says 600 feet from a residential zoned dwelling. It didn't matter if it's 1 or 2,000.
That's correct.
So we have this
So you could elect not to waive that standard if you so desired. That's part of what you could do. You could elect to do. If you don't.
Okay, I guess I gotta go and we'll do a discussion. I apologize. Is there anybody else in opposition? Okay, the applicant has a chance for a rebuttal.
No, just one more opposition.
Oh, your opposition? I apologize.
Steve White, I'm the Director of Construction, Caddo Parish School Board, 1961 Midway Avenue, 71108. I stand here not in direct opposition of this, but looking for a little bit more information. It was stated that upon the excavating of the material from a proposed pit, that the pit would be put back into I believe the term was suitable. So just don't And I do understand that you'd have to go through another hearing for this to be a landfill, and I believe that what's gone on in the very recent past here in Shreveport, that there would be a very slight chance of that being passed. But since we do have the school just adjacent to the piece of property, we would be concerned about how the condition of this property would be left. It is true that school has not been occupied for 2 years as far as a classroom building. We are maintaining it, though, to at least maintain one structure in case there is a catastrophe of some sort, a fire, some type of storm, damage to a school, that we do have a facility to move students to temporarily while we would correct their home school. So that's the reason we maintain the Hillsdale property. But just with that in mind, is there a way, and you'll have to excuse my ignorance of these types of matters, with the proposal of this, is there a way to get more of a definition of how the land would be permanently left after the 5-year period? And is there a mechanism to ensure that information provided at this point would be followed through? Is that an ordinance that would have to be followed up on where, you know, personally, I don't know Mr. Nick. I've met him before. Mutual friends have said, wonderful stand-up guy. But I got to represent the position of Caddo Parish School Board. No offense, Mr. Nichols, but you could be run over by a train going home tonight, and then someone else would take over his company. And do they have the same standards that Mr. Nichols may have? So is there an assurance that we would have the property just adjacent to this school would be left in a suitable condition?
I don't know do we define suitable? How do we define suitable?
There has to be, part of this ordinance is a reclamation plan, and so they're required to file that reclamation plan and follow that reclamation plan. And I'll give you an example. You know, we've had another location where they have excavated the material and they wanted to convert it to a lake. And when it was first submitted to us about the possibility of doing something with the property, they said, well, we're not going to do anything to the edges of this lake. We're just going to let this drop off. Well, the reclamation plan required them to taper the drop off around the lake. And so they elected to continue to operate the pit. They did not transfer it over. But that reclamation plan, whatever is in there, is what they'd be required to go. So if they are saying that we're going to grade this property to a certain level, and then we're going to resod it, and that's how we're going to leave it for now, and for the possibility of maybe selling this property for some other future use.
But we're not putting that into this today.
They've got a reclamation plan
Okay.
that's been filed.
Just out of curiosity, is there a way that before I could state either opposition or for that, is there a way to review that? Could I get a? I'm sorry?
All right, you guys you can't go back and forth like
I'm
that. I
sorry.
apologize. You can after we're done here. Anybody else have a question for Mr. White? Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anybody else in opposition? Okay, hearing none. The chance for a rebuttal.
In regards to the restoration, Kenneth Antee on behalf of the applicants. In regards to the restoration, paragraph 2F2 of the zoning application states that the final restoration plan will be an approximate 10-acre lake for local stormwater, groundwater management, along with recreational development for future building development. The bottom elevation of the proposed final pond will be approximately 210 feet. That's above sea level, which the same as the existing and remaining pond, the pond that's there now. Any remaining disturbed ground would be hydro-seeded for best management practices for stormwater pollution prevention. Permanent erosion control measures will be in place until permanent grass is established. So that answers or addresses the restoration. In regards, Ms. Cooper, to your questions about the residents, there's only approximately 3, and those are directly north of the property and across the street. That's the Giffords that came and spoke in favor of it. They're comfortable with the waiver of the 10-foot berm, and they're the ones most affected. By the Roach's admissions, They're 12 to 1,300 feet away from the property line. They're nowhere near the 600-foot setback. The,
Can I clarify that? You said the only people that are within that less than 600 feet are the people that said they were for it.
correct, the Giffords whose property
Thank you.
is this house right here, and then that's a rent house they have, and then you go down this street, and they have a couple of residents.
Thank
You
you.
can see here. And that's, you know, the only ones within the 600 feet that are residents. As far as the roaches, we understand their concerns. And Mr. Nichols wants to be a good neighbor, but, and realistically, they're a quarter of a mile or beyond the property line, where there's still going to be, the excavation's not going to go right up to the property line. So in addition to that 1,300 feet, you add another 100 feet, they're 13 to 14, 1,500 feet away from the closest excavation that's there. They live up in this area. Once this is excavated here, then all the work's going to move south. And when that takes place, it's getting further away from the roaches.
Is that the school, the R1,
This-
R1D,
This is the school. Yes.
which is in the 600 feet?
Very close.
It's within the 600 feet, and it's, like they've said, it's been closed at least for 2 years, and and it's currently boarded up.
You can ask him a question. Yes.
When you say it's 1,200 or whatever feet from the roaches, is that from their property line or from their actual structured home?
I just went by what Mr. Lewis Roach stated, that he was 12 to 1,300 feet from that property. I don't know.
So we might need to clarify that. Okay.
I don't know, other than his statement that he is 12 to 1,300 feet away from where it would be, which I would assume would be the edge of the property line. If you add another 100 feet, then it's that much further, and then as the work progresses south, they're even further away, well outside of the 600-foot exception. And again, Ms. Becky Gifford and Mr. Glenn Gifford stated that they're in favor of it with the berm because, like Mr. Young stated earlier in the Circle K marathon, be careful what you're against because you don't know what could come in afterwards. And there's a lot of things that could come in that's going to be a lot less favorable.
I'm kind of curious now, and I can't really ask, I can just see head nods. Is that what the school board, Mr. White, I believe, was saying now that he heard what the restoration plan would be, if they would be for or against this now?
Oh, yeah.
We'd have to waive it, hang on.
Well, and I think when you ask the school board to get 12 of them to agree if they're for or against, I think.
Well, I think they have a representative here.
Not a
So,
representative.
and I think his comment was, he expressed his concerns, he's neither for nor against, but he wanted to know how the property was going to be restored, and that is contained in the application. And as Mr. Jean said, when the property is to be abandoned, then it has to meet what was set forth in the original application. Also, to that note, is there are certain ordinance and requirements as to dust, and if at any point in time they exceed those, then there's enforcement. The parish, since it is in the parish, has the ability to come in and shut it down until such time as it is enforced.
Actually, would that be yours, Mr. Clark?
We would be able to, with the parish attorney, go in and shut down operations. But I think, if you would allow me,
Sure.
I think that one of the most negative impacts of dirt pits is the dust. And our experiences on dirt pits all around the parish has been that there needs to be a plan, a watering plan, that's a part of your approval that requires that these trucks are on site at all times and that watering occurs at certain intervals why dirt is being excavated, because they're gonna be kicking up a lot of dust. And dust is gonna be traveling all over the area, and it's gonna travel, expanded areas as he knows, because he's experienced at this. But I think that, you can't ignore that fact that dust is gonna travel.
I would have to ask then, would that be conducive to you guys to have them out there at all times?
To have the water trucks there and all.
And then, I didn't forget you, I apologize.
It's in the plan.
That,
I haven't read the plans, I never got a chance to see the plans.
Miss Bessie? Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
and I'll defer to Miss Bessie.
Yes, I'm just wondering, the last time you all were here, the guy that spoke, he said, and I heard one of them say this, if the people don't want me there, I don't want to be there. Why did you all change your mind?
But
Please.
would you,
Well,
No, only one person. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
well,
We have to follow protocol, I probably.
right, and I can answer that question.
And another thing, while you were talking, I just recognized a lot of them doing this back at the back too, when you was talking about the two people very close there. They were doing this in the back, and I just want you to speak to that, if you can.
I
know they
can't because
can't speak anymore.
I was looking forward
I know.
and didn't know at what point they were waving, nor would I want to
I
speak
understand.
for them.
Comprehend.
But to answer your question as to Mr. Nichols,
Please.
prior to the July meeting, Mr. Nichols had not personally met with Mr. and Ms. Gifford, who are the property owners that own this rent house and this property right here directly adjacent to them. He has gone and met with them, talked to them, answered their questions, and satisfied them to the point to where they took time out of their day to come spend all afternoon here to say that they're in favor of it because they would rather have, in their words, this borrow pit and know what they have and be able to keep their privacy than to have something come along later that they don't know. And so they've made the decision on their own, as the property owners directly adjacent to it, that they would rather have this. And if I'm incorrect, I think they'd be behind me waving, saying that's not true, and I don't know if that's taking place.
I need to ask, Mr. Jean,
Yes, ma'am.
I heard you mention the parish about a borrowed pit, dirt pits, or whatever you want to call it. Do we have one in the city at this time?
Yes, we do.
A number of them.
We do. We have one that's off of Mount Zion Road in the city.
And Miss Bessie, this property is not in the city.
Oh, it's not?
Pierce.
Yeah,
There.
I think it's on the border.
All right. Is that, you have 23 seconds?
If there are any questions, I hope the two main issues were the distance between the actual residents and the restoration plan, and I hope I answered those.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. Any other questions?
From what you understand, are they only taking the top dirt? They're not going to dig the hole other than where the 10-acre lake is going to be? Is that what you understand, just so I'm clear?
Oh,
No,
let
Mr. Andrew,
They will-
if he knows, if you don't know, just say you don't know.
They will excavate on average about 20 feet. Now, there's some hills there, so there may be some that goes more, but it'd be on average of the current topography, 20 feet from where it is now.
But just so I'm clear, we're not talking about taking this property and then obviously taking the topsoil, but we're not digging a hole down in.
No, and the reason for that is the dirt is very specific as to what quality that it has to be in order for it to be bridge material. And there was discussion about dirt pits other areas. Well, a lot of them around the river and North Bossier and other areas, that's mainly sand and river sand. This dirt meets the requirements in order for the DOTD to approve this dirt to build the ramps for the bridge, and that's very specific dirt, and it's not just anywhere. And so having this available answers a lot of questions because it does meet the specific requirements of the Department of Transportation for those ramps for the bridges.
So, and you guys have specified how far down in your plan that you're going to go. So
Correct.
you can't say one thing and then go further than that, correct?
That is in the plan, and then also it's in the restoration plan to where the bottom of the 10-acre lake that will be put there will be approximately at 210 feet, which is the current bottom of the lake, of the ponds that are there now. So there won't be this big quarry like you see in San Antonio that was so big they built a golf course down in the bottom of it, and it's 70, 80 feet deep. And then when the property is left,
It is pretty.
then it will be on approximately 210 feet, and that's all laid out in the plan.
And just so I can wrap my mind around it, let's assume for a second that you were going to build a subdivision on this 40 acres, okay? Would there be any more construction taking the dirt off of the top than there would be if we built a subdivision out of the whole 40 acres?
Are you talking about to come in and move the dirt around and level it?
Is there going to be any more disturbing of the soil if we develop it or if we just take the top dirt off of it?
Oh, I think by definition, by taking more of the dirt out and having a much larger lake there, then it will be. But when it's resolved, then it won't be. And that it won't be any more than what if there was a subdivision there now and you were moving dirt around.
Well, no, I'm saying if we started today and let's say instead of the borrowed pit, we called it a subdivision development. He wanted to develop it into a residential subdivision. Would they disturb the neighbors any more with that than they would with what they're doing now?
If you built a 300 lot subdivision there, then obviously the traffic's going to be way more than it would be with the trucks coming in and out.
So that would be, so what the residents around it said they'd be okay with the subdivision or apartment complex. They're not going to just simply taking the dirt without doing any more construction is going to disturb the neighborhood less. I mean, overall, right?
Yeah, the overall traffic with a subdivision that you could put on a property that big would be a lot more. It'd just be a different type of traffic.
Okay.
Any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Ante.
Thank you.
All right. I need to call for a motion. No, sir, I'm sorry. You can't. No, you can't. Sorry. We can have a discussion. I need a motion first.
Okay.
I have a motion to approve the application.
Do I have a second?
For discussion, second.
All right, and open up for discussion. Ms. Nancy?
If there's a way to clarify the distance of their homes from this pit, I think that's pretty germane to our basis for allowing a waiver. It's a specific issue in the ordinance. And if we don't really know how far the Roach's house is, we can't really weigh that issue appropriately. So if there's a way to do that, I'd like to do that.
Well, I think they're outside what's the service area that we give
500 feet. Now, that map is included in your packet, the 500 feet.
500.
But that's from the center of the properties, in all fairness, so it's not...
I gotcha.
That's from the
perimeter property
outer
line.
Yeah, outer borders of the property line.
Or from the outer borders of the property line, yeah.
Yeah.
So can we address Nancy's question?
Is that information available anyway? If we maybe ask the Roaches, or is there another way to confirm where?
If you suspend the rules, then you can allow that, then you have to suspend it to let the ones who are for it again speak again. It's a Pandora's box.
Well, I think somebody else, but I think we should be able to do it.
Mr. Jean, can you tell me on the 500-foot notification, if you look up Gifford Avenue or Gifford, whatever the street is, that line intersects what looks to be a residence?
Yes.
Do we know whose residence that is?
That's the Giffords, the ones that are okay with it.
Well, there's one right there where the A is.
And they rent property.
Okay, and then the other one is...
They own that property, so that's not the question. The question was with the Roaches. How far the Roach property was from.
That's what I'm thinking. So I don't know.
Is it more than 600 feet?
I'm not sure where their property, if there's the property is right there by Kyle that faces where Jefferson Page is, that's right around 500 feet from the property line. There are a couple other residents over here off of Roundtree that seem to fall within that boundary.
So I guess I would like to know, is there, other than the Giffords, are there other residential properties within that 600-foot that's in that's in the ordinance?
They're right there.
Yeah, you see a line here that shows 500 feet.
But that's from the middle of the property.
No, it's from the, he said it's from the boundary.
Boundary.
That's from the boundary. So you just add another 100 feet.
Thank you, I just clarify that. I don't know what 100 feet is on this scale.
But there's a 100-foot buffer on property.
The ordinance has, did you see the ordinance?
Well,
And Gina, Stephen, I
You
would
see what I'm
like
saying?
to, if
There's
there's
a 100-foot
ever,
buffer on property.
hold on, if there's ever any ordinance and stuff, it would be very helpful if we had them
we
to,
kind of have a duty here to not, to know if there's a house within 600 feet of this dirt pit.
I agree.
Because we really don't even have any say if it, our waiver rights only come into play if that's
Our
the case.
attorney says she can tell us what they could do. Talk with Steve and let us know. I asked her.
The
Well, what you're asking for, you would like to been able to have a determination from staff, what structures were within the 600 feet?
Or
that
with
we're
their
getting at?
waiver authority or whatever.
yeah.
Because
I mean, because we didn't, you know, without having to go through and verifying exactly where these are, I couldn't do it in this meeting at this moment, other than what we
Yeah,
were just
we're gonna
doing
have to
here,
defer
using the 500-foot notification line.
I just think we need to be careful because we're operating under a very specific ordinance. We're not really doing a zoning change. We're not doing site plan approval. You know, are y'all with me?
I concur.
She's asking you
I'm
to
trying
withdraw.
to, I don't want to be the lone voice. I'm just
No, I
trying-
concur with that. I think we have, I don't think we, I'd like to see the ordinance myself. I'd like to see where the properties are. We know the Giffords are saying they're within 600 feet and they're saying, okay, but I don't know whom else is in this area.
Possibly, right. And I just want to
And
be
since
careful.
it only goes 500 feet from the property line, the people that are 600 feet might not have been notified. And the ordinance pertains to them. You see what I'm saying?
But, yeah, but is it's 600 feet from the edge of the property or from the edge of where they're, because there's a 100-foot
Proposed
setback.
borrow pit shall not be located within 600 feet of a residential dwelling unit located off the proposed borrow pit site.
Okay, but if you look at inside where it says borrow limits, it's 100 feet inside, if I'm reading this correctly. So you have to take that into consideration because it's not going to be from the outer boundaries of the property, it's going to be from the outer boundaries of
the
where
pit.
the borrow limits would be.
Probably.
Located off the proposed borrow pit site within 600 feet of a unit located off the proposed borrow pit site, which means the site itself. So if they're off the site and they're located within, the dwelling unit itself is located within 600 feet, then that is the required buffer distance that you have to have. And so what you're saying is you don't believe that you have adequate information to analyze this because you don't have the exact dimensions from dwelling units to the site. Was that what I'm, and then,
Yes.
and we're
Well,
not,
we have a motion to, whoops, I forget.
I know, but I mean, ask a question.
Approve in a second, so we either have to withdraw that or vote on it.
Yeah, and the maps here do say 1 inch equals 400 feet, so there is a way to determine that and provide that information to us.
But do those people have a right to know this?
That's a great question,
And come, because they are only within 500 feet were notified, not 600 feet.
I'm just looking at, I can see several different units that appear to be located within 600 feet. If you look at the
And if they all
R18
come and say
section.
it's okay,
If you look at the R1H section and you see the properties that, if you went just a little bit further, you would pick up 2 or 3 residences there.
And we
down
did
below
have
with
other people that,
R1D.
you know.
I'm just talking about if you're using that as a dimensional, that if you increase that by another 100 feet, you'd have a number of what appear to be residentially zoned dwelling units within the 600-foot limits of the site. I can tell you that now.
Thank you.
Once again, is this a deficiency that we have because borrow pits are so unique in the current zoning? I mean,
Well, yes, but we can't
if you ask
address
for a
it
borrow
today.
pit, if you put in an application for a borrow pit, why does it go to the standard 500-foot notification and when the ordinances are saying you got to be 600?
600.
Is that a deficiency that we might need to address in the
Well, just,
UDC
yeah,
to make sure we notify the appropriate people that are affected? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, we could have extended it. Because the notification area is not an ordinance
Out of it.
issue.
All right.
It's
What do you want me
it's
to
a
do?
standard
What
that's
is it? Let's do
practice.
something. Call for the vote, or withdrawal, or
I
something.
just said, we need to, if there's nobody, everyone has a right to discuss it, and I'm not going to hurry it if you have questions.
Okay, I'll withdraw, so in all fairness to the applicant and to the,
All right, do we need to vote on a withdrawal or no? Okay.
No.
Do we have
Motion
a-
to defer and continue.
Second. All right, no discussion? I call for the vote.
Get out of here.
And then I would say, let's see if it passes first.
That vote.
Nope. Oh, now you did, Miss Bessie.
All right, motion is accepted. And we would want more information and the people notified within that 600 feet area. I would think it would only be fair. Okay, case number C-7014, Nicely Properties, Inc. And you had the unlucky fortune of being last.
This is called getting your application in first.
Yeah, I won't make that mistake again. Good news is just about everybody's leaving, so I don't think I have any opposition. Michael Kelch, Raylene Associates, 4913 Shed Road, Bossier City, Louisiana. Mr. Nicely couldn't be here today, so I'm just filling in, and I'll try to answer any questions you may have. Just to kind of clarify maybe some confusion, we're good with R1DE.
Okay.
Mr. Nicely doesn't see any need for B3. He basically just wants to move his construction storage building to this site. It will just be a couple trucks coming in, or a couple of trucks staying overnight. The workers will come in, switch their personal trucks with the workers' trucks, get any storage from inside any construction storage from inside the building, load their truck and go out to the work site. And then at 5 o'clock, I guess is the hours of operation, they'll return and get their personal truck and leave the
Nice landscaping.
construction truck. I didn't do that, so
Just say
I
thank
can't
you.
take credit for it.
Sure you can.
But I guess that pretty much covers it. I don't know if there was any other questions y'all may have.
Any other questions?
Trucks will
Thank
be
you.
stored inside the building.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm not sure about the trucks, the pickup trucks. Any loaded trailers, if they are loaded, will be inside the trailer, or inside the building. If there may be an occasional empty trailer that is parked outside the building. It won't be any 18-wheelers.
That trailer would be outside storage.
There would be, he said empty trailer.
If it's an empty trailer, well, I'm not sure if there'll be any empty trailers outside this. I can't answer that
The
question.
reason they do that is to keep it from becoming a trashy site with a bunch of trailers outside, other than an industrial site.
I'm sorry, I can't answer if there'll be empty trailers outside the building or not.
Mr. Stipp?
And he'll leave here with a smile on his face. No, he won't.
Okay. Any other questions for this young man? All right, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
And there's anybody here in favor? Anybody in opposition? All right, call for a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
Wait, any stipulations on this?
Yes, go ahead. I can't, conflict of interest. Wait a minute, there's already ordinance in place for the outside storage of trailers,
Is that
correct?
true?
There's already a
You got a
stipulation.
stipulation that says it.
There's a stipulation in the case, there should be no outside storage of materials or heavy equipment.
Very good.
Does a trailer, in your opinion,
Yeah.
cover
Yeah,
that?
so we need to put
Okay.
that in there.
Stipulated as noted in the
Thank you.
paper.
Second.
Helpful.
I call for a vote. Just want to be clear.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
No, you're denied. That passes.
Democracy.
What planet are you from?
Oh, no, I'm the chair. He's denying. Okay, we're going to go through this, though. Do I have a call for approval of the
Move
minutes?
to approve the minutes? Second.
Okay, do we have to vote on that?
Yes.
All in favor, vote.
I didn't even look at them.
Unfinished business, I'm glad it's at the end of the day and we're ready to go. I want to talk about the nomination committee to replace Mr. Ferdinand for vice chair. You automatically go to vice chair, by the way, and secretary for now. We were going to be electing officers for next year in October anyway. I think I'll put a nominating committee together. We'll meet before the next meeting and elect the next year's officer and the fill-in for secretary until the next officers. How's that?
Sounds great.
All right, do I need a vote on that? No. All right. Stephen, what's the follow-up cases sent to city council and parish commission? Can you make it brief?
Yeah, I really don't have any follow-up for you today.
Wonderful.
Yep.
And budget report.
Yes, the 2015 budget, the budget committee, of course, met. We turned in the budget November 6th. We will appear in front of the council, and then we'll have an approved budget by December 15th.
Good.
What's being passed out right now is that in order to cover some of the expenses with the search for the executive director, we really need to do a budget. Of course, I've talked to the chair about this for months now, a budget amendment, so that we can go ahead and move forward. So with your permission, we'd like to go ahead and get this on the council agenda so that we can get the money moved around officially so that we can begin to spend funds out of different series. This does not ask for any additional money. This just moves money that was saved from the personal services of the other areas.
You need you actually have a motion to vote on that?
I really think it would be best
All
if
right,
you
motion
did.
to approve.
Second.
All in favor, vote. And it passes. All right. Are we to chairman board member comments?
I have a comment.
Huh?
I have a comment.
Oh, you gonna do it?
No, it said chairman/board members comment, so I'll raise my hand to say, once the chairman gets finished, I'm a board member and I have a comment.
All right. All right, I would like to take this.
I
Oh,
really
can I?
had something to say.
Well, so do I. Can I say it real quickly and then I can go through that?
Yes.
All right, I'm pulling range.
Because somebody's going on.
I would like to say that next month, we will have our new executive director coming in, and I guess it'll be his first meeting. So I'd like to take this time to officially recognize Stephen Jean in the interim position. A marvelous job you've done. You've made it terrific. You want to look at me?
Well, I'm thinking about everybody else that needs to be here.
We'll just send them a DVD.
All your changes and your direction has been appreciated, and you've done a phenomenal job. So we will miss you in that position, but there's lots and lots of work for us to all do together. So thank you for your service and filling in.
I would be remiss not to say this has been very much a team effort. There's a lot of people who have stepped up to the plate and done a lot of extra things, a lot of which I've not had an opportunity to tell you. So it's been a nice surprise that you chose me to do this, and I will say that I believe that we've got a good staff, that we've got a lot to learn, a lot to do, and when I look at the draft of the UDC, it feels a little overwhelmed, but it's also exciting at the same time. So I have been in contact with Mr. Sweeney on a number of occasions, has gotten his input. I got his input as regard to the budget. As the budget committee knows, we were actually able to get his feedback and some decisions that were made, and we're looking forward to working with him. We think that we'll have a very good, exciting time in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Miss Bessie.
Yes, I would like to concur with what you've said about Mr. Jean. Mr. Jean, you know what? I really didn't even know that you could lift your voice. You were so soft-spoken, and I just didn't even know that you could really talk so much. I have to say.
I'm not sure, but I think that was a compliment.
And your leadership.
We have a remarkable staff, and I really like the teamwork. But I wanted, and thank all of you all, you've been superb.
Thank you.
Superb. But I really wanted to, 10:30 last night when I was watching the news, and it announced about Lydia Priest.
Oh, yes.
A hard worker down through the years. And I just wanted us to remember her family in our prayers.
Thank you. Mr. Amides?
Thank you very much for giving me
You're
the
welcome.
opportunity to speak. I would like to get a clarification from our council about whether we have to have a motion to discuss a case. Because many times, I don't have an opinion until I hear what you have to say and what you have to say and what you have to say. So for someone to say, you have to form an opinion whether to deny or approve this case before we can even discuss it is, I don't really understand that. So do we have to do that?
Yes, you have to have a motion to discuss.
We do have to have a motion to discuss.
Parliamentary procedure.
But, I mean, you have to take that with
Always-
Robert's
you
Rules
can
of
always
Order.
vote.
But you
But do you see how that seems backwards? Like, you have to make a decision in a direction to go before you even start talking about a decision in what direction.
It doesn't mean you have to go through with the decision.
You can vote the,
No, I agree with it.
What the motion is.
I don't agree with that. And
or
I
you can
think
make
that
a
it's-
substitute motion after you hear all the discussion.
Okay. So I just wanted to get clarity and.
Well, that's the reason you'll often hear your fellow
Yeah.
board members say, for discussion purposes, they'll make that clear that for this the
I
purpose
just thought
of
Alan didn't
discussion.
want to be controversial.
No. Oftentimes they do that.
Oh, that's Dale.
I
was
was gonna say,
wanting
where is
to
that?
push it along.
Finally got it right.
I was trying to push it along.
got his phone
Just opened up the
here. Oh, no.
discussion, let's get it going.
I know
it.
Okay, Ms. Cooper has a comment.
For another day, but I want to put it out here. You know how we changed up our procedure a little bit. We vote with each case. I would like to change our procedure again, so that if anyone is requesting a deferral, that they go first. I would like to get the deferrals out of the way. I think it's a little bit obnoxious how long someone has to wait to stand up and say, we want a deferral, yes, okay, bye.
But
I don't
see,
think
everyone
that
asks for, here's my point on that. Everyone that asks for deferral does not automatically
No,
get
maybe
it.
not, but
So they could have been that, it could have had a lot of opposition, and we could have gone just as long on a deferral case as we
yeah,
did
but
on
that
this
would be
one.
the exception, because that's the exception.
Not necessarily, I've seen it.
Well, I'm saying I've seen it. It's the exception.
I just think first in, first out.
So moved.
I think somebody's wanting to go
I just
home.
think there needs to be a little bit more triage effort to accommodate people's time, and I think that was kind
Well,
of.
But I'm telling you, it does not mean that they automatically get a deferral.
and well, to add to what she's saying, I think that we should make a change, which is a little different than what you're talking about. If someone has two cases of the exact same property, we should either pair them together in the
We
beginning
usually do,
or pair them together at the end.
and we can make a change to that, too.
Okay, I would like to see
Making
that.
sure we do
Okay,
that.
can we discuss this next time,
Yeah,
or at mid-month?
I'm just trying to get that in your brain.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn.
Yay.
Stephen, don't forget to go back
I
and
guess
put your
everyone's in
dates
favor, right?
Your dates.
Anyone want to sit
Don't forget to go back and put your dates in.
I have to go back to the library.